So what I'm showing you here are some shots from David Lynch's Twin Peaks: The Return, and alongside them are some paintings by David Lynch himself. The influence his previous visual art and other works have had on parts of The Return, and how it expands and culminates many ideas, themes, and imagery that Lynch has explored throughout his entire body of work in and outside of film, is but one reason as to why I think that The Return is one of the great artistic achievements. In The Return, the finale especially, there's a focus on the Laura Palmer house. When Dale Cooper arrives with who he believes to be Laura Palmer, the owners of the house are not who he expects, and something else is lying deep within Laura's house. That force awakens and screams out. Laura is terrified, forced to relive her trauma, and Dale looks utterly defeated. And then the show ends. I'm not here to theorize about the ending. I don't really have a theory about it, and I appreciate it more for what it means by the feeling it emits. What I find interesting is that this is it. Not only is it the last scene of the show, but could very well be the last scene in a David Lynch project if he never directs again. And somehow it's a hauntingly fitting way to finish off his body of cinematic work. I've been exploring a lot of parallels from his paintings and other visual art to The Return, and I realised that Lynch has crafted numerous paintings that present an ominous force intruding into a home. And it's this idea, alongside many others across his work, that culminate in The Return, which is a reason for me to further believe my statement of The Return being one of the all-time great achievements. When an artist explores certain themes, ideas, and plays with certain imagery over the course of their career and body of work, and culminates these ideas into one huge defining work, it can be considered a magnum opus, which refers to the artist's most significant achievement. Think of David Bowie's Black Star, or Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, Edward Hopper's Nighthawks, Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, or Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. It can often be debated which work is an artist's magnum opus, but in the case of David Lynch, I would argue it's undeniably Twin Peaks: The Return. And this is partly because of how much he incorporates his previous visual artwork into the series. One thing that really interests me about David Lynch is that, although known for his extensive work in film, so much so that in 2019 he was even awarded an honorary Oscar for his contribution to cinema.
You have a very interesting face. Good night.
David Lynch has always considered himself first and foremost a painter. He grew up painting and wanting to be a painter, and only got into film when he accidentally stumbled across the medium of cinema and was fascinated by making a painting move. In his book Room to Dream, he talks about how he misses painting when he's busy working on a film project and always tries to find the time to. He's often been saddened by how he's perceived primarily as a filmmaker rather than a painter, and how it's been hard to be taken just as seriously as a painter as he is a filmmaker. We don't know if David Lynch is ever going to come out with another film or television work, but it's nice to imagine him spending his days painting outside in the LA sun. Because of his sheer passion for painting, it's a shame that over the years quite a bit of his artwork has gone under the radar, as some of his artwork is Lynch at his most interesting, as there's no such thing as even minor creative restrictions for him in painting. And it's such a shame that some of this artwork has gone under the radar, because when you look closely you can often see how his paintings and other visual art parallel his film work or vice versa. There's a lot of words that are used to associate with Lynch and his work, but there is one word that shines above them all, and that is the word dreamy. And we often don't know if Lynch's work takes place in or outside a dream or nightmare. It's this dreamlike ambiguity that draws me and so many others to the man's work, and I think this ambiguity is often presented most in his visual art. One of his more well-known paintings, This Man Was Shot 0.9502 seconds ago, shows a kind of spirit rising out of the body of the victim. The shooting is supposedly taking place indoors in an office building, but the shadow seemingly being cast indoors by the sun presents this eerily dreamlike setting. Are we viewing this scene as some omniscient presence or dreamer, or in this case, are we the shooter? The spirit rising out of the victim's body is just even more imagery that Lynch would explore within The Return. But it's not just The Return that incorporates previous visual art and influences to his future pieces. I like to think of Lynch's fascination with factories, from Eraserhead to The Elephant Man, all the way through to Twin Peaks. He's always had this fascination with factories and industrial landscapes. And in between and after all of these projects, Lynch would continue to paint and take pictures of them. One photo that Lynch has taken of the industrial that I find particularly compelling is this one, taken sometime between 1980 and 2000 and printed in a book showcasing his factory photos. Look at the way it's angled, the building captured between two removed windows. I'm unsure if it's the lonely factory that makes me feel uneasy, or if it's the disjointed angle, or how the photo presents this eerie frame within the frame that evokes this uneasy feeling. This one photo is full of just as much nightmarish industrial ambiguity as entire scenes in some of his films. Just like in the painting I spoke about previously, one of the scariest factors of this image to me is what we can't see. It's who's looking at this building or dreaming of this building. Is the giant structure outside the window intimidating, or is the unknown behind the broken windows even scarier? If you know me, you know how much I love David Lynch, and how he's not only just my favourite filmmaker, but artist in general. For Christmas last year, I got given the book Someone Is in My House, a beautiful showcase of his paintings, photography, furniture, and more. I've spent hours of my time just flicking through and admiring each page and piece of artwork I see. It's very interesting to me because one thing that I've always admired about Lynch's work within any medium is that it seems in each thing he does, he always seems to be building on ideas, themes, and imagery that he's always explored and experimented with. I already spoke about the industrial landscapes being prominent throughout his career. I've spoken about this idea of an ominous force within a house. There's an erotic aspect to a lot of his work too, and constant imagery of electricity. Now with Lynch, I do think it's important to note that not everything he does has to have some underlying intention or message, and most of what he does probably doesn't mean anything. Although that doesn't mean you can't analyze it and come up with interpretations, just don't ever expect any kind of confirmation from him.
It seems to me that that's what that recurrent visual motif is about, and I know you hate saying what things mean in your films, but am I right in thinking that that's at least in the right area?
No.
I think a lot of what connects Lynch's work is due to something stemming from his subconsciousness or general fascination that ends up going back to these ideas, themes, and imagery no matter the context he explores them within, because they fit his aesthetic. And what Lynch is within his art is an aesthetic. The term Lynchian is used to describe this aesthetic, but has a bit of a different meaning to most people who engage with Lynch's work. The Lynchian in itself is an aesthetic, but not one that can be effectively designed by anyone but the man himself, because we only know it when we see it, and we only see it in his work. To a lot of people, the idea of something being Lynchian usually refers to the dreamlike weirdness of his work, but I think that idea misunderstands his aesthetic. For example, this
I've been loving you just a little bit too long.
screams Lynchian just as much as this.
Sailor Ripley, Luna loves you.
But I'm a robber and a manslaughterer, and I haven't had any parental guidance.
But the Lynchian in the sense of the themes and imagery and ideas that Lynch is famous for exploring throughout his work all culminates to his magnum opus of The Return. Thank you for watching the video. I have been really wanting to touch briefly on Lynch's visual art for quite some time, so it's been exciting making this video. Also, I know it's been a minute since my last upload. It's been a hectic year so far, but I'm hoping to get back to a regular schedule soon enough. Until next time, goodbye.